Hello again. Let's talk about another feature of comparative advantage. This one I don't think is done too well in textbooks, so let me run through it. Comparative advantage can change direction in the real world, and they can do so rather easily. But again, in order to figure it out, you got to work through everything from the beginning. The biggest trouble that students have with this stuff is not doing it all the way through from the beginning. So what I've done here is I have the exact same setup but on a clean sheet of paper. Okay, same exact numbers for Iowa, Nebraska, and corn and wheat. And I've pointed out that Iowa has an absolute advantage in both, but I've also noted this time around that you really shouldn't care. Absolute advantages are not important in the real world. The sense in which Iowa has an absolute advantage is if you compare corn production, they're better, and if you compare wheat production, they're better. They have an absolute advantage in corn, they have an absolute advantage in wheat. But that tells us very little about terms of trade and comparative advantage and specialization. I have the 4 sentences that you need to do the problem set up below. They're exactly the same as in the other video. To produce 12 corn, Iowa must give up 36 wheat. To produce 36 wheat, Iowa must give up 12 corn. So those are exactly the opposite of each other. To produce 6 corn, Nebraska must give up 24 wheat. To produce 24 wheat, Nebraska must give up 6 corn. Okay? And what I did in the other video is I scaled these multiplicatively by doing division. So I did 12 divided by 12 to get 1. And then dividing by 12 over here got us 3. I divide this by 36 to get 1. And this by 36 to get a third. I divide this by 6 to get 1, and this by the same thing to get 4. I divide this by 24 to get 1, and I divide the other one by 24 to get 1/4. That's exactly what shows up in that other video. Now, the sense in which comparative advantage can change is, can there be circumstances that occur in one state or the other, or both, that change these numbers? And the answer is yes. Okay? If the numbers change, okay, these results down here might change as well. And if these results down here change, the idea that Iowa should specialize in corn and Nebraska should specialize in wheat might change. The thing is, it only takes one of these 4 numbers to change by enough to change this pattern of specialization down here. So let me circle that in blue so that you remember, or at least underline it. Iowa should produce corn and Nebraska should produce wheat. Okay? Now, like I said, it does not take very much of a change. So this could be an improvement in technology. It could be a change in laws about how the things actually have to be produced. It could be worse weather in one place or another. Okay? So let's assume, say, that there's a weather event that does something to the corn. I have never grown corn other than in my backyard. I don't know what hurts corn. All I know is it was really hard to grow on my own. Okay? Let's just say there's something that makes corn not grow as well in Iowa, and this number here changes to 8. Okay? That's all that it takes to change the comparative advantage, but you're not going to know unless you redo these 4 sentences completely. Okay? Now, I'm not going to do that, but what I will do is go through the math at each point. Okay? So that means changing this 12 here to an 8. Okay? But the 36 stays the same. That 36 appears over here, but this 12 over here would also be changed to an 8. Okay? And nothing would change for Nebraska. I haven't changed either one of Nebraska's numbers, so the 2 sentences become exactly the same. But now we have to go through and do the multiplicative scaling again. So if I do that, I take 8 divided by 8 to get 1, and I take 36 divided by 8 to get 4.5. Going to the next row, the 36 stays the same, but I still have the 8 over here, so 36 divided by 36 is still 1. But 8 divided by 36 is actually 2/9, okay, which is about 0.22 if you get out your calculator. I don't have any problems with you using calculators like this if you need to, but fractions make it much easier. I know the problem is that everybody in like 6th, 7th, and 8th grade told you, oh, fractions are dumb and you should use a calculator. You know what? They were wrong, okay? You probably should have learned fractions, and if you did, this is a good time to apply them. If you didn't, yeah, I can live with you using a calculator. It's just not as easy, okay? Anyway, once you get these answers, you make the exact same sort of comparison you did before. So you look at production of corn. Iowa, to get 1 corn, has to give up 4.5 wheat, but Nebraska, to get 1 corn, has to give up 4 wheat. So now wheat is cheaper in Nebraska. Same thing for producing wheat. In order to get 1 wheat, you have to give up 2/9 of a corn in Iowa. But in Nebraska, to get 1 wheat, you have to give up 1/4 of a corn. If you check your fractions again, 2/9 is actually less than 1/4. So Iowa, whoops, I circled the wrong one. Okay. I circled the wrong one before. Should be Nebraska would specialize in corn, and Iowa would specialize in wheat. Okay. So when we had just the black numbers, okay, in the previous video, Iowa was supposed to specialize in corn and Nebraska in wheat, okay? But when the numbers change in one of the 4 places, it can change the pattern completely. So now we're in a position where Iowa should produce wheat and Nebraska should produce corn and then trade them with each other, okay? So I think it's an important feature of comparative advantage that it not only tells us why specialization takes place, why division of labor takes place, and how that results in trade, but it also tells us how patterns of trade can change, how one country or region can produce one thing at one point in time and then later lose that ability to do that well and produce something else instead. This is what's happened in the United States. If we go back 100 years ago, we were known as a country that made manufactured goods and exported them. Well, we have clearly lost that comparative advantage. Now we produce a lot of services. We produce entertainment services and legal services and accounting services and educational services, and we export those. But somebody else has a comparative advantage in manufacturing, okay? Currently, that seems to be China. If we went back 100 years ago, China was known as an exporter of agricultural products. Now they're an exporter of manufactured products, and you know what? They won't be able to keep that either, because that's the nature of comparative advantage, is the numbers change, the proportions change, and the patterns change, okay? So you're going to be approaching retirement in 40 years, and the Chinese are no longer going to be known for manufactured goods, okay? Weird, but true, okay? You got it from Dr. Tufte. I will see you guys in another video. Bye.